Okay, Dr. JB, we are live on LinkedIn with my bird. But I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. Your name is Dr. Naomi Jean-Baptiste, but you're also known as Dr. JB. You're also known as the Metaverse Doc, and you're an emergency medicine physician, founder of Hope for Med, a podcast host and professional speaker. And I know that I think you came across my radar from our mutual friend, Dr. Jonathan Fisher, who has led the Ending Physician Burnout Conference. And I know you're on that same like-minded mission as he is. I've learned so much from him about the state of not being well in the medical industry, and for doctors and nurses and the entire teams in the caregiving industry. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to continue the conversation from your perspective and learn about what you're doing on that same mission. So before I start, I love this post that you have on LinkedIn. So if I can use this as your introduction, that's what I'll do. Thank you. So it says, allow me to introduce myself. And you state your name. You say you're a first generation Haitian immigrant. Your trauma and traumatic experiences are not, I'll read it from this.
That's fine.
I'm a first generation Haitian immigrant. Trauma and traumatic experiences are no strangers to me, not just because I'm an ER doctor. No, my history of trauma began much earlier than that. As a survivor of childhood trauma, I have personal experience with feelings of worthlessness, loneliness, and shame. At an early age, I learned the importance of mental wellness. I learned that if I were to survive to see another day, I had to safeguard my mental health. Escaping in my mind through my imagination was the initial tool I used. Thinking of amazing odysseys that would whisk me away from reality, even if just for a few minutes. Those moments allowed me to dream of what life could be. Those brief periods gave me something to look forward to. Where would my imagination take me next? I found joy in those moments. Amazingly, those brief periods of joy allowed me to realize that joy was indeed possible, not only in my imaginary escapades, but in reality. Today, as the Metaverse Doc, I extend out a warm hand to anyone wanting a break from reality, anyone looking for a place to come to where they can exhale. Only once you exhale can you take your next breath. We all start someplace. Zig Ziglar said it best. It's not where you start, but where you finish that counts. Where do you want to finish? I love that article that you posted on LinkedIn. It's so moving. And so let's start with, what is the Metaverse Doc, and what do you do there?
Well, I am the Metaverse Doc, and essentially, I find the metaverse as this amazing opportunity to really foster connections between people. Really, no matter where in the world you find yourself, right? So we can really create close knit social communities. And so what I do in the metaverse is I host and organize events around wellness, and I provide resources, focused on your wellness. But I use the metaverse because, oftentimes many of the activities when we think about workplace wellness and whatnot, a lot of those activities are very individual, right? So we'll give you like a gym membership or something like that, right? And it's just, you by yourself going to the gym, or maybe you'll get a colleague to go with you or whatnot, right? But it's, oftentimes sometimes those activities can feel very isolating. Right. And one of the things that I'm really combating, one of the things, the reasons why I started my podcast was to really, really, make people realize that they are not alone. Right. And really tackle this whole feelings of loneliness, that it's only me, or there's something wrong with me for feeling XYZ, for experiencing these emotions, right? When I look out into, at my colleagues or whatnot, they seem to have it all together. And so if they have it all together, what's wrong with me? Right.
Mhm.
And and so that's why the activities that I do are very communal, right? Because I really want to combat that. Like, you are not alone, right? You're not the only person, going through XYZ. We are all in this together. And the
Mhm.
metaverse really allows me to do that.
And what made you take that step from just being a doctor to wanting to help other doctors?
Mm. Well, as a doctor, you always want to help others, right? It's a helping profession, right? I remember when I was applying for medical school, one of my theme songs was The Fray, How to Save a Life, right? And I was a huge Grey's Anatomy fiend, right? I've had like Grey's Anatomy potlucks, leading up to medical school. And I've mentioned this before in my podcast, that like I don't have any doctors in my immediate family. I didn't really know really what I was getting myself into, except for what I was seeing on TV, right? And I was like, yeah, Grey's Anatomy is gonna be just like Grey's Anatomy. And before I entered medical school, I loved Grey's Anatomy and I hated Scrubs. I thought Scrubs was so, dumb. I didn't understand the humor. Like, it was, not for me. So, but The Fray was my theme song because I love that song. And so I remember driving to my interviews and like, I'm gonna learn how to save a life. know.
Love that too.
um and I'd get pumped up for those interviews, right? Because that was my goal going into medical school, was I want to know how to save a life. I want to be that doc where if they say there's a doc in the house, I raise my hand, right? And because I was so passionate about that, I ended up being an emergency room doc, right? And that really fills that desire, because as an ER doc, right, no matter where you are, you can intervene, right? Like, that's what we do, right? And so that was always my mission, right? However, as I've worked in medicine, and I've been a patient myself, right, that almost died.
Mm.
I've taken care of patients at the bedside. I've been in leadership, being the director of a emergency room, sitting on, committees and leading committees. And, so I've seen like the, full gamut. I realized that the unfortunate reality is that, saving the lives of our patients is not the only lives that we need to focus on,
Mhm.
right? Who takes care of the caregivers? And if you delve into that a little bit more, you realize that there is a crisis happening amongst the caregivers, the physicians, the nurses, the respiratory therapists, physical therapists, pharmacists, right? Even on LinkedIn, if you read these posts, right,
Mhm.
there is a crisis happening within the healthcare system. And if we do not address that crisis, it is going to self destruct,
Mhm.
right? And there is not a single life that has not been affected by a healthcare professional. And I say that there's a healthcare professional present for all the phases of your life, or all the seasons of your life, from birth, right? When you transition from being, well, when you're healthy and staying healthy, when you transition from being healthy to being sick, and when you transition from being alive to dying, we need healthcare professionals. And so that is the vacuum that I am stepping into, because I realize that I actually can do even more good. I can save even more lives, right? By really focusing on saving the lives of my colleagues.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. It's so true. And I know from what Jonathan Fisher has said that the system has been broken for decades and decades, but I guess COVID really put a spotlight on it. And so, what have you seen, or how has the response been from caregivers when they see your offerings? And are people like saying thank you finally, or are people saying I don't have time to participate in this?
Oh, I hear all of the above. I hear all of the above because the reality is, right? Like we're all busy.
Yeah.
Right? We're all busy individuals, and there's only 24 hours in the day. And this is just one additional thing that I have to do. And so that's one of the things that I'm combating. Is like you don't have to do it, right? Like I'm creating this to be a resource that is accessible to you whenever you need it, whenever you want it, right? It's not, oh, this is something you must attend every Monday at 3 p.m., right? Because as an ER doctor, that's not something that I could do. That stresses me out
Yeah.
because this Monday I might be off, but next Monday I'll probably be working, right? Or getting ready for work or whatever. My life is, all over the place in terms of my schedule. And so, I created it just as a resource that's accessible to you. So, with these live events though, right? I mean, they're live. So you attend them live or you can catch the recorded session, right? Like we really want to make it truly accessible. So much so that the membership is free, to join Hope for Med. If you are a licensed healthcare professional with an active license, medical license, or nursing license, or health professional license, or if you are a student studying to become a healthcare professional. So if you're in medical school, nursing school, pharmacy school, or if you're a trainee like a resident, you are welcome to join Hope for Med, and it's completely free to you, because I want to make sure these resources are accessible to as many people as possible.
That's fantastic. And so will you share a little bit about your November 12th event coming up?
Yeah, so the November 12th event is inclusive of healthcare professionals, right? But it is not exclusively for healthcare professionals. So, I'm the Metaverse Doc, and the metaverse is the future of the internet. And if you look at articles and in the media right now, there's this back and forth, back and forth. Oh no, it's not going to be a future. It 100% is the future of the internet. That is the direction that we are going. And it's early stages and we don't know really what it's going to end up looking like. I equate the metaverse today like cell phones when they first came out. Right? These massive, like these huge, let me see, how do I get my thing? Yeah,
Yep, I remember that.
these massive cell phones, and then to the point where they are today, right? And so with that being said, and me realizing that that is direction, as the Metaverse Doc, I create opportunities for professionals to experience the metaverse. And so the November 12th event is that, right? But I focus on wellness, so with this being the direction, my goal as a Metaverse Doc is to really create this wellness refuge in the metaverse for everyone, right?
Mhm.
So that you don't get lost and lose sight of who you are, right? You know that there's always this resource that you can always come to and engage in. And so on November 12th, I will be featuring a summit that is free. But spots are limited for avatars. There's only 200 spots available to be an avatar. Other than that, you have to, just see it on Zoom. Um, but it will feature 7 speakers, nationally and internationally renowned speakers, combination of keynotes and workshops and exercises. And it goes from 9 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern, with that last hour of the day being a Q&A, live Q&A with the speakers. And so all of us are going to be avatars. So you're going to be in a room full of avatars. You're going to sit at these conference tables, just like if you went to like a real conference. You remember when you walk into those rooms, these big conference tables? Well, guess what? You're going to walk into that room as an avatar and you're going to sit down at a conference table, and to your left is going to be an avatar, and to your right is going to be an avatar, and in front of you is going to be an avatar, and the speaker is going to be an avatar, except when we're doing the exercises. Because I have a professional that's going to be doing breath work, and that's hard to do breath work with avatars as it is. So you will see that person on the big screen and engage, because even though all of us are avatars, but behind those avatars are people. And that's who I'm reaching out to, the people behind the avatars, but creating a safe space through the utilization of being an avatar.
That sounds amazing. And I'm sure it'll be super successful and you'll continue to have lots more. And so let's talk about so as an ER doctor, how do you manage your stress, and how do you also set boundaries from when you leave a shift? Like, I'm curious about how long it takes you to sort of downregulate your nervous system, or maybe you're used to it now. So can you talk a little bit about that, how you manage your stress?
I think it's very challenging to get used to it as an ER doctor because you never know what you're going to experience. You never know what's going to come through those doors, and the doors are always open, right? And so, you could go through a day where you have no life-threatening emergencies, which is very rare. It's very rare. Or
Mhm.
you can go through a day where you're, forced to deal with one ambulance after another ambulance after another ambulance, with a person in cardiac arrest and a woman who's actively in labor, to a pediatric cardiac, like you never know. So each day and each experience is a little bit different. So, one of the things that, I do a lot of breath work, truthfully,
Yep.
because that calms me, right? And I do it in the middle of a code, right? Because you're not supposed to, get all frazzled, you know.
Right.
So I'll do it if I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit nervous, things aren't going like I thought they were gonna go, then I'm gonna, do some breathing exercise to calm me down so that I can think clearly in that moment. And so, people around me are like, you're always so calm, right? Like I exude this calming, presence. And I was like, oh, if you only knew what was going on inside,
Right. That's what I love about breath, though.
Mhm,
You can immediately,
mhm.
shift that. And so, what are your breath tools? What are your favorite ones when you need to be calm?
So, breathing in through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And then just doing that a couple of times, it really brings down your heart rate, and it just instantaneously calms you,
And
right?
are you sharing that tool? Like, or do people just sort of, you're the one that breathes? Or do they say, like, I want some of that?
Oh, I'm the one that breathes, I'm the one that breathes because I'm the one that's supposed to be sending out instructions about, okay, now do this next, and I need to declutter my mouth I need to declutter my mind
Yeah.
instantaneously, right? Like so, in those moments, in those life-threatening moments, it's not we don't have time to be like, okay, now everybody let's breathe, right? But since I am the captain of the ship, I need to make sure that I am guiding the ship as effectively as I possibly can.
And hopefully people see that you're breathing. At least they notice you're always calm, and then hopefully they'll learn, because they too need to be calm yet alert, and that's where the breath comes in. So that's true. You don't have time to give quite a breath lesson, although it is so simple that if it's just like lengthen your inhales and exhales, and you
But
too
that's
can
what
be calm.
but that's what we'll go ahead and do in the Hope for Med
Yes.
events,
Yeah.
right? So we'll go ahead and teach those, right? When we're not in that moment, right? But we can go ahead and recreate and relive those moments by saying, remember that last experience you had when you were, working in the hospital and experiencing X, Y, and Z, right? Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and revisit that right now, all right? And then these are some tools that you can go ahead and utilize, right? Let me teach you these tools here. And then as a challenge, right, for this week, when you go to work, right, and you find yourself starting to feel the same way, use these tools and see what happens, right? So that's the setting, at the Hope for Med events that I have for the healthcare professionals. That's the setting where it's easier to be able to share those tools. In the emergency room, when I'm going from one room to another room and there's 30 people in the waiting room, and we only have so many rooms and beds, and I'm getting a called, here, this person needs this. Like there is no time to like gather the team together and really be able to teach those types of things in real time.
Maybe there could be some stickers throughout the ER or something, because you know what? It also helps. I mean, not in the ER, I don't know those medical situations, but I'm saying at least for the caregivers, it would be just like a gentle reminder, like lengthen your inhales and exhales. That would be something simple that medical centers could do. Why do you think doctors and nurses and caregivers aren't really educated so much on self-care and on the importance of it? The culture seems to be, it's known that as well, you're an intern, you're working all these long shifts, you're hardly getting any sleep. Do you think is the culture changing, like with people like you and Dr. Fisher who are speaking up about self-care?
Definitely. It definitely is changing. I think, you know, part of the culture of medicine is that we are very altruistic people, right? And we give. And, we're like, I don't have time to take care of myself because I have to take care of this person or that person. And then I have to take care of, everything outside and whatnot. And we always put ourselves on the back burner, right? We're like the last ones to be thought of. And then we may or may not think of ourselves as we're about to pass out and wake up and do it again, right? And that's not healthy, that's not sustainable, and we realize and we're seeing how unsustainable it is because so many of us are like, I can't do this anymore, right? Now, imagine if we infused self-care into our day-to-day. Like, what if we prioritize things,
Yeah.
right? How much longer in terms of like our career longevity could we possibly have? If we realize that actually for me to really give my best to my patients, right? I need to be well myself, right? My wellness needs to be optimized, right? And once my wellness is optimized and I'm able to think really clearly, I can be more efficient, right? But I can really, I love the analogy of not only pouring from a cup that is full, but pouring from a cup from the overflow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when your cup is overflowing, right, it affects the person, in front of you, but it's overflowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it also affects everyone all around you.
Yep.
And I think that is the paradigm shift that I'm trying to really push for in healthcare, and in in general.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about sleep for a minute. I don't know, is your schedule, so you're working all different hours all the time, or do you just work daytime or just work nighttime?
Mm-mm. I'm
That's
an
all.
ER doc. I'm all over the place, which just makes it very, very challenging, in terms of sleep, right? Because, like, for instance, this week I can say, like, I worked mid shift, so it's 3 shifts. So I worked the mid shift a couple days. Tomorrow I'm going to start my stretch of overnights. A couple days later I'm going to be working the early hours. Like, that is life of the emergency. It's shift work.
And how do you adjust? Like, how do you sort of try to regulate your sleep? Because we all know that sleep is a key pillar for
Mhm,
wellness and also for cognition and for you to make those split second decisions.
mhm,
So
mhm.
how do you, what are your sort of rituals for getting to sleep when you still might be wired from a shift?
It's challenging. Truthfully, it's challenging. I don't sleep well post an overnight shift. Like I think I sleep for like maybe 4 hours or something like that post an overnight shift. It's very challenging. I sleep better for the other two shifts, but the overnights really destroy me.
Yeah.
And so it's very challenging. I think one of the things that workplaces can do, right? Because I mean, I understand. I mean, it's the life of, if you are at a place where you are open and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Then you're going to have shift work. There's going to be people that are working, the nighttime, the mid shift, the morning shifts. And some of the things that can be beneficial is, well, are there people who prefer one shift for another, right? Because there are some people who love nights. I'm not one of those, but I do it because that's what I have to do as a year doc, right? But but if there are people who love nights, then give them nights. If there are people who love mornings, then give them mornings. If there are people and then if you can't do that, then when you schedule their shifts, then be humane with that, right? Like, so don't make them flip from you know, a 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift and then make them work a uh, um, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift or whatever,
Yeah.
but like follow like the circadian rhythms. And okay, you have a stretch of mornings and then you have a stretch of mids, and then you have a stretch of overnight. So your body kind of gets used to it, right? And then you have a stretch of days off, and then you do it all over again. So that's my recommendations.
Yeah, it's hard, but at least you're self-aware of the fact that you know how important sleep is. And so you try to, I'm sure you use breath, right? Like, do you use 4-7-8? That's a good one for getting to
No.
sleep.
Uh-uh.
Oh, so 4-7-8, it's where you inhale to a count of 4, and then you hold your breath for up to 7, and then you exhale slowly to 8. Because, when your exhale is twice as long as your inhale, you get that relaxation. But the breath hold in the middle, the retention, helps to quiet your mind. So even if you just hold for 3 or 4, you really notice it just brings you inward and you're focusing on your breath. And a few rounds of that might help you get to sleep or get back to sleep. It's Dr. Andrew Weil, his breath tool and
Oh,
it really works wonders. So give that a try.
I'm gonna try it. I mean, I'm working tomorrow night, so I guess Saturday I'll try it. So then even if you wake up after the 4 hours and the light is, the sunlight is shining in your
Yeah.
eyes or whatnot, I'll try it.
Yes, try
Yeah.
that. And so what about the conversation? Do you have you seen a shift since you've sort of been vocal about being an advocate for wellness in the ER and in the hospital? Has the conversation elevated a little bit where people might ask more questions about self-care and wellness? And what's that conversation like? And what's the new sort of sense of camaraderie?
People have been extremely receptive to, this conversation because it's needed. I think, like, again, like Dr. Fisher said, this has been an issue long before COVID, right? It's not a new, a new event or new hazard or whatever because of COVID. Life in healthcare, being a healthcare professional is challenging, right? But COVID brought it, to the forefront even more because you just couldn't hold it in anymore. It was just too much, right? Like the stress overfloweth, right? And so you couldn't help it, just came out, right? Um, and so that has facilitated these conversations. And so people are really receptive to these conversations. I think the biggest challenge that I've been experiencing is there's a lot of fear around the metaverse.
Mhm.
I think it's more so about the idea of like, it's the unknown, right? And everybody, is fearful of unknowns and change. This is a different way of doing things, right? And they're not used to this different way of doing things. And so that bridge between, introduction and testing, because when they test it out, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. But like getting them to the point where they're going to test it out, that's the part that I found that I find the most challenging. It's not the conversations. People are very receptive to these conversations, but and I think also people have a hard time imagining what
Mhm.
it is that I'm saying, right? And so when I actually demo it, they're like, "Oh, wow," like you just hear, "Wow, wow,"
Yeah.
Um, and so, and that's kind of where the phase that I'm at right now is, creating opportunities, to demo it. Like, look, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they say a picture says 1,000 words, right? Um, and really, there's not enough words I can use to really relay the possibilities that lie in the future, especially for healthcare professionals in the metaverse. So I'm giving opportunities to come check it out and see.
I love it. And I recently did one for the first time and I didn't have the headset. So I just watched it on the laptop and it was still magical. And it did feel like an escape. And it also felt very like in community with the people there. And I think this is a great way because, like you said, time is the barrier for so many people
Mhm.
to connect with other people or go to conferences. So this is something people can do from their laptop, but connect with like-minded community and have this in virtual reality or in the metaverse. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I think it'll be a huge success on November 12th. And will you let people know how to get a ticket and how to stay in touch with you?
Oh, yes, definitely. Thank you so much. So, the metaversedoc.org. If you go to my website, you'll find out more information about the November 12th event, more information about the speakers, and then that if you click on tickets or register, the register button on the website, it'll bring you straight to our Eventbrite page where you can go ahead and register for your free ticket.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to hear about the event after. And thank you for all the work that you do in the ER and outside of the ER. You're amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
Take care.
Okay.